Find yourself in the Beachview area of Pittsburgh? Check out the official pizza of this show, Slice on Broadway, sharing an abnormal obsession with pizza we can relate to. Check them out at sliceonbroadway.com and tell them this show sent you.
Hungry as fuck, but I ain't starving yet. Chain for the pain, cocktail bar set. Never said I was a gangster or thug, but I'm an animal. Feeding for the taste of the blood.
Hey guys, it's the Indy Mayhem Show, episode 101. Wow, we're in the triple digits, and I'm not going to be used to that for a while. But this is the show where we talk about independent pro wrestling and independent pro wrestlers and the people around independent pro wrestling. I happen to shoot video for independent pro wrestling. I said it way too many times. I'm done tonight. Locally here in the Pittsburgh area for IWC and the RWA, and of course working with the IndyWrestling.us. With me from San Antonio, Texas, he also works in independent pro wrestling. He is the voice of Inspire Pro Wrestling down there. Eamon Paton at Eamon2 Please on the Twitters. How you doing tonight, sir?
I am doing fantastic in this new year. Like you said, triple digits is very weird for this show. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Let's once we get to 200, that's when I'll start to have kind of a mental trick, so to speak.
Wait till we get to the 10-year anniversary of this show, just like the main Wrestling Mayhem show. Then wow, that'd be weird too. But we got a great guest here tonight, ready to talk about independent pro wrestling. It's been a few weeks, and yes, I've been recovering the entire time since that last faded episode, and I still have flarp noises and stuff from when the sexy, talented dudes were down here in the studio. So we're going to settle it down a little bit and get back to business here in 2016. But you can find out that unfortunate episode and so many more at WrestlingMayhemShow.com. Subscribe to this show on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and of course the Wrestling Mayhem Show channel on YouTube itself. Facebook, the Great Wrestling Mayhem Show group. We talk about all kinds of pro wrestling over there with the crew from all over the country, and I think some international as well. And join us and let us know what you think. Good times at WrestlingMayhemShow.com is the email. Phone number is 412-206-WMS0. And if you want to support the show other than sharing it with all your friends and show them some awesome stuff and some awesome conversations about indie wrestling, we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Wrestling Mayhem Show, and you can support through there on the main show itself. So who do we have this week here, Eamon?
Well, this week on the show, we have a very special guest. Somebody just starting out in the wrestling business, but is already doing some spectacular stuff, particularly for a guy you may know, Booker T, his promotion, Reality of Wrestling, as well as some other stuff around the Texas area. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the Indy Mayhem Show, Hyaneyoung. How are you?
Hi.
Great having you on. I'm very excited. I guess the first way we kind of start most of these shows off is kind of an icebreaker question of sorts. Everyone on our show kind of got into wrestling one way or the other, but what was your first ever memory of watching professional wrestling?
My first ever memory, I'm pretty sure I was like in kindergarten or first grade, and my mom, she worked at the elementary school that I went to, and she ended up staying late because she had to set up for like a Girl Scout brownie thing. So I was in her office and I was like watching TV, and I was scrolling through the channels, and like they didn't have cable, obviously. So I remember seeing, at the time I didn't know it was Sting. I thought it was like Kiss, like the band, and it completely threw me off. I was like, what is this? And that was my first ever memory of wrestling ever.
Awesome. Good kind of introduction. After that, like, sort of, how did you get, sort of starting to watch wrestling more frequently? Were you a WCW, WWF kind of person? Where did you kind of side on that kind of thing?
I was more WWF. That was my first experience with wrestling, but I never really truly got into it. Probably maybe like a couple months later when my older cousin Donnie was like, hey, look at this. And I started watching with him. And my grandpa, who is from Mexico, he like grew up watching like the lucha shows in Mexico. So I used to watch it with him all the time. And he was like super into it. I didn't know like my family was really into it until I started getting into it. My mom she used to go to the Sam Houston Coliseum in downtown, and she, like, once I started getting more into it, she showed me like pictures of her with like Eddie Guerrero and like Hulk Hogan. So that's kind of where it started, you know, getting really into it. I was more of a like WWF SmackDown kind of person.
Awesome. And that's cool to hear, because I know I know families in particular can be interesting, whether it's like they're supportive or not of you know, particularly wrestlers and stuff like that. But it seems, would you say your family's definitely very supportive of your love of pro wrestling?
Yeah, I'd say they are. My mom's just always like, please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. You don't have health insurance. Don't get hurt.
Definitely. Well, and transitioning to that sort of deciding to train to become a pro wrestler, when did you sort of have the idea that you actually wanted to do this and become a pro wrestler?
When I was in second grade, I kind of already knew I wanted to do it. And at the time, I was really confused. Like, how do you become a wrestler? Like, do you just show up with like a job application? Like, I had no clue. Like, how do people do this? And so I watched it for a really long time. And then kind of when I got towards middle school, I kind of stopped watching it because it wasn't cool anymore. And several years later, I started watching it again. And I went to a TLC pay-per-view here in Houston. And I think it was the night before Booker T was having his Christmas Chaos show, which is at the time was like the biggest show of that promotion. So I went to that and I was like, dang, this is so cool. Like, this is how people get into it. And I talked to Book after the show and I was like, how do I become a wrestler? And he was like, join my school. I was like, okay. So they had this thing called a fantasy camp where you basically go for like a day and you kind of just experience, you know, what it's like to be in the ring. I did that, and Kevin, who is kind of like the booker for Reality of Wrestling, he was like, hey, you know, you should really consider coming back. So at the time, I was in a sorority, so I literally dropped my sorority. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore, and I started training.
Oh, wow. Very cool. And when, how long ago would you say was this, when you started?
This was maybe like 2 years ago.
Awesome. So, and like you mentioned, going into it, like not knowing specifically how someone gets into wrestling, how was the training like? Were there anything that you didn't sort of expect when you actually started training in the ring? Any sort of challenges?
I mean, I didn't expect there to be so much conditioning. The first like 3 weeks, you don't even touch the ring. You just condition the entire time. And that was kind of used to weed out the people that truly want to do it. The thing that like really threw me off was like, there's so many different ways to do one thing. So Book's philosophy is like, it's not wrong if it looks right. So you might like do a completely different way than everyone else, but as long as it looks right, then it's good. So I remember like learning to run the ropes threw me off because I learned it from one trainer. I learned it from another trainer. And I remember that day, like Shelton Benjamin came into the training facility and he's like, oh, you need to do it this way. And I was like, how do I do it? Like everyone's telling me different ways. So that was like what made it hard. But then kind of just getting kind of the basic principle of it and kind of tweaking it your own. That's what, you know, when that started happening, I felt like I started getting the hang of it.
Very cool. And if I'm right, you actually started, as far as like being on the Reality Wrestling program, you started valeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did. I did a battle royal, and I did like this thing called like a 5-carat diamond invitational. I did those two before I started valeting, but it wasn't like a regular appearance, I would say.
Definitely. And we've actually had a couple people on from Reality Wrestling, the Pump Patrol, most recently. And I talked to them a lot about sort of, because obviously Reality Wrestling, they produce a lot of stuff for their YouTube channel, and it definitely seems like a very high production value sort of show. Do you get that as well a lot in your training when it comes to, you know, how to wrestle in front of a camera in particular and something with that sort of production level?
Yeah, they sometimes we'll go through like drills where like, this is hard cam, so work towards that camera. Or they always emphasize like, keep your head up, make sure they can see your face. Everything is like a still shot. So make sure, not necessarily like purposely pose, but make sure you're always looking good. It's a 3D experience. It's like 3D, you need to move around. It's not 2D. So they do emphasize that a lot. Book definitely emphasizes that a lot. And character development a lot.
Awesome. And would you say, particularly because also Booker T obviously does a lot currently still with WWE, do you think a lot of the stuff that he, the training there is to groom you guys to, maybe get onto like a product like WWE or something similar?
Yeah, I believe so. When he was on Tough Enough, I don't know if you ever watched any of the shows, but they had like some really tough conditioning stuff going on. And so when he came back from that, he had us like all conditioning. This is what they're doing at the Performance Center. And after being there at the Performance Center for so long doing Tough Enough, that's kind of what transitioned into us getting this new like facility, which is almost like a mini Full Sail.
Very cool. And now obviously you're doing more stuff in the ring. I know from sort of recent episodes of Reality Wrestling, you're going to be challenging soon for the Diamonds Division title. What's it like to have been, moving up the ranks, I guess you could say, getting some more high profile stuff in that company?
It's really exciting. I remember when I first started, Book didn't even know my name, and now he knows my name. And, him having that trust in me to do certain things makes me feel really great. But at the same time, I've been there for a while, so I kind of feel like it's my time now. Like, I'm ready. Like, it's been waiting. I've been waiting for this. So it's really exciting.
Definitely. And also with like the character development you mentioned as well, obviously you've got a very distinct look, I think, also with the sort of Asian influence with your look and your gear and stuff like that. How did that sort of kind of come into development and sort of finding your character, so to speak?
When I first started, everyone thought I was Asian, even though I'm not. So, people would like bow to me when I would come to the gym. Like usually, you shake everyone's hands. People wouldn't shake my hands. They would bow to me, literally. And so it was like, oh, you're going to have an Asian gimmick. You're going to have an Asian. I'm like, no. Like, I've been telling everyone my whole life I'm not Asian. And they're like, but then Fallah Bah, who is in PWS, he came down to Reality Wrestling. And he has like a Filipino gimmick. And they kind of put me with him because of my name. And I do, people tend to confuse me a lot to be Asian. So I went ahead and did it. At first, I wasn't excited about it because I was like, I don't really know too much about this culture. I don't want to like, just be rude. I don't want to offend anyone with this. But once I started getting into it, I talked to Booker about it more. And it kind of started turning into like a Mortal Kombat kind of influence more than just like Asian. So when I was coming up with my character, kind of like my moves in the ring, I was looking at a lot of like Mortal Kombat, Katana, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. Very cool. And obviously going into 2016, obviously people kind of set goals for the year. And you even, expanded beyond Reality Wrestling. I know you recently came into Inspire Pro Wrestling, and I know you're even challenging for the XX Division title at our next event just in a few weeks. Not just there, but just in general in wrestling. What are some of your goals for 2016?
I mean, obviously the ultimate goal would be to go to NXT, but kind of like my mini goals to get up to the big one would be to expand more, try to get shows outside of Texas. I've been working in talks with another promotion in Louisiana and one in Oregon. So hopefully, God willing, I'll be going over there soon.
Awesome. Very cool. Also, we have some of our regular questions here on the show that we kind of ask everyone. The first that we have is, what are you watching currently as far as wrestling goes, as far as either for studying purposes or also just recreation? Is there anything currently that you kind of have your eye on?
NXT a lot. NXT a lot. To be honest, I just don't have time to watch TV ever. Like not even Raw, which kind of sucks. I always have to like watch everything on the network. But I've been actually watching a lot of SmackDown replays from like 2002 through 2005 in NXT. So that's kind of my focus right now.
Very cool. And the last question we kind of end the show with, and many of our guests take it in many different directions, so feel free to take it however which way you wish. But what is, in your opinion, the best and worst thing about indie wrestling?
The best and the worst thing. The best, honestly, is just living your dream. I always tell people, like, if 10-year-old me knew what 22-year-old me would be doing, 10-year-old me would freak out. Like, be so happy. Like, whether I got signed or not, like, I would be, just going out for your dream. The worst part about it is, I say, it's kind of tough. Sometimes there can be egos when you get in the ring. Sometimes going to different indie promotions. One thing that is so amazing about Books is that when you go back, step through the curtain and you talk to Book, like, he'll tell you every little thing you did wrong. And like right now we have Bruce Pritchard working with us. So Bruce would tell you everything you did wrong, but he'll also tell you everything you did right. So you get some true constructive criticism to make you better. And sometimes when you step through the curtain at an indie show, it's just like, oh, good job. Oh, good job. And I remember, like, one of my first matches, it was like, oh, good job. And I was like thinking to myself, like, that was terrible. Why didn't they tell me that was terrible? Like, I was expecting to get like chewed out by the promoter, because that's what would happen if I was doing that at Books. So that's the only part that I'd say is like the worst. Sometimes you don't, depending on where you work, and you really want to get better at the end of the day. That's what you want to do.
Awesome. Definitely. Well, thank you very much for coming on and talking with us. Definitely seems like some big things for you going forward. If people want to follow you on social media, or if you have any upcoming events you'll be appearing on that people can check you out at, feel free to plug away.
Awesome. Well, obviously, the new era begins at Reality of Wrestling at a new facility January 30th. That's going to be like the biggest show of the year, I believe, and it's going to be huge. Also, obviously, Inspire Pro, January 17th. So,
awesome. And I believe people can follow you on Twitter at _Hyaneyoung.
Yes.
So, definitely go check her out. Definitely, like I said, it seems like a lot of great stuff heading your way, and definitely going to be cool to see. So, once again, thank you very much for joining us. And we're going to take a quick break, and we take a look at everything that happened this past week in Sorg Tribe Media, and we'll be right back.
Mr. Sawtooth.
What?
One. That's my lens cap. I'm going to need that.
What is your lens cap?
Yes.
Oh, this is my lunch.
We have this lovely lady over here.
I'm still going to eat this. What is this?
This is it for the internship that we.
For the internship. Did you get it from that other fella that was down here before that we talked to?
No.
You here for the internship?
This doesn't smell like vodka.
What? You think we got vodka down here? What, are we rich?
I don't know. That guy just handed me a cup.
Which guy? The guy who was here for the internship?
No, that other guy. He's kind of scroungy looking.
Scroungy looking?
Yeah.
I don't know who you're talking about. Oh, the tiny dog.
Yeah.
The tiny dog from upstairs. So you're here for the internship. That's good. That's good. I got a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
Oh, okay.
Question number one. What is your experience with the underground?
I like underground rap.
Like presents and gifts?
Like, I don't know. Oh, man. I'm just having a bad day. I just was at this party, and then my boyfriend just started making out with this other girl, and...
Well, that sounds terrible, but why has that led you to come underground?
This guy said that there was an underground party, and I just needed to get away, and just... My boyfriend just cheated on me.
This might be good. This might factor into the job interview. How are you with disposing of bodies?
Bodies?
Bodies, you know. We can start small. We'd like a pigeon.
I don't know. Just throw them in garbage? River? What?
Not in the river. That's the correct... She got the right answer. That's good.
It smells like coffee.
What is coffee?
I don't know. It's like a drink you wake up with in the morning.
Oh, blood from a cat's face. All right, I got it.
Hey guys, we're back, and thank you so much to our guests. And by the way, there was a little clip of Sawtooth Willie, some fun stuff we've been doing lately. You can check out more of that. Look up Sawtooth Willie on YouTube and the Facebook, and we've been having a lot of fun with that lately. I think you'll enjoy it if you're like our humor across the Mayhem Show network. Well, hey, it's from one of the originals. So So hey, I wanted to make a mention. So we really are on the mission of you guys can really check out a lot of the stuff that we talk about here. It's not just, I know we say we were plugging local shows in San Antonio, Houston, Austin, wherever, but especially Reality of Wrestling is definitely very media minded, I guess you can say. And if you go over to realityofwrestling.com, you can check out our guest and so much more. Their TV show is actually available over there. So click on over the ROW on TV and the recent episodes, and they'll actually pop up here, and they're on YouTube. And so you can see what Booker T is doing down there, and what kind of talent is coming out of Booker T's group down there. And who knows? I think if you're being trained and in the promotion by somebody who happens to be on SmackDown every week, I'm pretty sure you got a good chance of coming up and get a chance maybe with NXT or something in the future. So go check that out, realityofwrestling.com. And like I say, we try to talk with as many people as we can where you guys can access them either on YouTube or buying the DVDs, buying the digital downloads, however that may be, or going to or firing up the Google Translate and doing the New Japan Pro Wrestling World thing, as many of us did over this past week. And by the way, I think last year we talked about New Japan really in depth on the site or on the show. We did that over on Wrestling Mayhem Show because just everybody's excited about that. So we went ahead and did that and had a great talk. Eamon did a deep dive on that with our friend Matt Carlins that does it around the Indies article. And Vaughn Johnson that joined us from Philly.com, Squared Circle, in the sports section, writer over there for them, talking pro wrestling and everything from Philadelphia. So go check that out, Wrestling Mayhem Show 501 for the in-depth talk about Wrestle Kingdom 10. Eamon, so it's the new year. It's been a little bit. We ended pre-Christmas in a very New Year's fashion, I suppose. And I was thinking, man, it's the new year. It's the New Year's resolutions time. And what are our resolutions for indie wrestling? I want to take this a couple of different ways. But I think, first of all, I think, us as viewers or participators or however you want to take this part of it, what is your personal New Year's resolution around indie wrestling right now?
I thought about this a lot, and I kind of think I view this from like a viewer sort of perspective. For me personally, there's a lot of great indies, and we talked about this on the main Wrestling Mayhem show. There's a lot of great alternatives and stuff like that that's emerging right now in wrestling. I think it's the biggest stylistic time I think for pro wrestling it's been in a while, maybe ever. And I'm very excited to see that. Personally, I've gotten into the New Japan. I obviously myself and Tonio joined you for a bit of a look at Mexican wrestling as well.
Great episode. I had so much fun with that. I didn't need to. Well, actually, we'll get into a little bit of that in a moment, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely. But I think the next thing I really need to get into British wrestling.
Oh wow.
I know of British wrestling, but it seems there has been such a wave of great British promotions and British talent currently that it's really. I think it's really became something very special. With I know Progress is probably considered one of the top ones right now as far as indie goes. Revolution, I think it's Rev Pro is another one that comes to mind. I think there are a couple others I can't think of right now, but as far as talented people go, like indies in the UK are really spectacular right now. I just watched this past year's Pro Wrestling Guerrilla Battle of Los Angeles, and to me, the talents that really stuck out to me were the British talents. Your Zack Sabre Juniors, your Tommy Ends, your Will Ospreys. And even like smaller ones like your Mark Andrews, who's on TNA currently. I really think there's some amazingly talented people right now in the UK. And everyone's talking about it. There's such a great sort of vibe about all these promotions and a style and a production value to that style. It's something really special. And I think 2015 was almost, and a lot of people can make the contenders of this, but it was almost the year for UK wrestling, everyone was talking about it as far as like indie wrestling is concerned. So yeah, I definitely need to start following it a bit closer, I think.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of along those. I mean, not anything in particular. I just need to not participate. Obviously, I'm participating, but I need to explore more. I of course have kind of rededicated, saying, okay, Lucha Underground season 2. I'm going to watch that as dedicated as I do NXT. Okay. I have to. I missed out on something amazing last year, and again, I did live kind of vicariously through you guys. But I was also at a spot where I was like, I want to watch this. I don't want to just throw this on in the background, which unfortunately, if I want to watch more wrestling, it has to be, I throw it on the Chromecast or I throw it on an iPad over here while I'm working. It's the only way I can watch more wrestling physically at this point, right? And I actually sat here and I have a to-do task list that I have for work and personal stuff that helps me kind of get organized. And I just put 2 entries in here for Tuesday and Thursday that says watch some indie/Japanese/Mexican wrestling. So even if I go and say go to realityofwrestling.com or pull up New Japan World or other wherever I can find it and just watch something, an episode of this, an old show of this, something from the G1 Climax last year, just pull up a list from YouTube, you know what I mean? And throw that on. At least like I have the opportunity to discover something new. I'm checking it out. I'm getting into maybe the Mexican wrestling and what we talked about. And by the way, we had a great discussion. You guys really kind of laid out a lot of stuff that you could be checking out in Mexico of CMLL and AAA wrestling. By the way, just following those on my Instagram and Facebook has been really awesome lately. It's really cool to have that little bit of something different in the feed. And I keep forgetting that I followed them, and then I just get random luchador pictures, and I'm just like, okay, all right, or a random Instagram video or something like that. It's a nice surprise personally for something like that. But no, again, it just getting out there, exploring this kind of stuff, and I'm just kind of reinvigorated. The excitement that season 2 is coming on Lucha, the excitement of just coming off of. I watched Wrestle Kingdom this morning. Okay, so I'm still kind of on a buzz off of that, and then participating and hearing you guys talk about them for I think we went nearly an hour on that during Wrestling Mayhem Show. So I that's where I'm at. It's like wrestling more, yes. And then there's also the realization this morning. It was like, how I was complaining last night, I think, with you guys in the Hangout. I was like, I cannot possibly watch more wrestling. What a problem to have that I want to watch more wrestling. That's a great problem to have. It's an amazing problem to have if you're a fan of wrestling and such a huge fan that we are, that we do podcasts and get involved in the ways that we do. I think that's it. Professionally, I mean, it's not a new resolution. It's what it always is. The groups that I work with, the RWA, the IWC, and all the other guys that I just, help with videos to put them out there in digital download. The goal has always been to make these bigger, make them, get an IWC and an RWA to the point where, where they're the more talked about promotions out there, right? Where there's somebody from around the world saying, man, you got to check out this IWC stuff. You got to check out this RWA stuff. There's some cool stuff happening here. And I have the notes that they're getting international attention in some fashion. So I think it's interesting to see that happening, at least in the numbers that I'm seeing, and seeing that grow. It's definitely grown. It's grown in number of people participating and contributing, and especially with the growth of IndyWrestling.us these past few months, and getting that figured out. So that's where I'm at. Do you have a professional one? I mean, from where you're at? I mean, I know you touch on a few different aspects of Inspire Pro Wrestling down there.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, in the year, the thing that I think just sticks out for me is just I want to learn more. Like I feel like I've done a decent enough job at commentary. Not saying I'm great or anything. I'm far from it. But my peers are seem very receptive to my commentary and are very pleased by it, especially the people who are considered my bosses, which is mainly as for me, as long as I'm pleasing them, I'm fine. Yeah. I just want to learn more. I want to get my hands in some more things and see some more different aspects of like production and just everything that goes into putting together a wrestling show. I want to be more sort of, involved in the business. I think my only other like definitive goal or resolution or whatever for 2016 would probably be, I want to get booked at least one other place. All my work right now has been with Inspire Pro Wrestling, and I love Inspire Pro, and I'm never, obviously thinking of like leaving or anything like that. But like, I don't know. I feel like it would be very validating to be booked one place else. I think that would just be, for me, that's kind of my goal, and to have, somebody else appreciate your work. You know what I mean? Because I love that Inspire does, but a lot of these people are becoming, my friends and stuff like that. So I don't know. I just hopefully branching out. I think in 2016 as well. And that just goes back to the whole learning more sort of thing.
Right. And I think that's definitely am I here just because this is the group that I've been running with, right? That somebody else says, well, I want that guy to be part of this. I think that's very important in the spot you're at, because you're really like I kind of make the statement like I'm not like when people want to work with me, it's like I don't need you to prove myself. You know what I mean? When it comes to, hey, work for our promotion. No, I'm working for these and that's fine. And whereas if you're a wrestler and announcer says, oh, I'm working for this group over here locally and I don't really want to go anywhere else, that's like, well, then you're not.
That's kind of frowned upon.
You're not doing anything. Versus me, it's just like, well, I can't physically do anything else. So no, we're not going to do anything else, And that's been the argument for me. I would love to expand to be able to do more promotions. But then they're not getting me. And I think that's what they're trying to get, because
that's part of it.
Because I think I don't know. I think people have told me they like the way I put the videos together and the way I edit, and you won't get that if I'm not there. So because frankly I have a philosophy of. No, I'm going to live switch because we're going to turn this around, and that's another full day that I have to do this. And you know how like wrestling DVDs don't come out for like a month because nobody has time to do them, because it takes a freaking long time to do them, to put that footage together. That's why we do it live or bust for the most part, unless I've been double booked, which I can have no control over, and I just kind of deal with it. But versus you want that expanding. You want somebody else to find value because you want to do eventually down the line. You have the idea that you could work for WWE and do a thing, right, and make a career of this.
I mean, here's hoping.
right. But I mean, you're on that trajectory like any wrestler would be to a degree. Whereas I really don't want to work for WWE. Is it?
Because it's so different from what it's so different from what you do.
Right. If I would do that, if I would do it, I would be a union. I would be a union worker. There's no glory for me to go work on something like that. It'd be cool if somebody knocked on my door and I got offered a job at WWE. I would probably do it. If there was nothing keeping me from anything else in my life, right? But I also know if I did that, I would not be working for WWE for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a thing that I would do. I would do it just to be like, wow, there was that time I worked for WWE, and that's cool, and then I can go do something else. That's kind of the nature of, I think, the business I'm in for that. That's not a career-making thing for me, I don't think. At least the way my career works. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that. So awesome. So I guess lastly, we're going to make New Year's resolutions for other people now.
We're going to tell you what you should do.
We're going to tell you what you should do. So you know, it is kind of a broad thing. I don't think anything in specific. Anything like, well, you know, this company should be doing more of this. You know, but broadly, I think for indies as a whole, or maybe wrestlers as a whole, or something that you observe, this is kind of like the best and worst of question. What is a New Year's resolution that you have for independent wrestling? For them out there?
Because you mentioned this question before we started, and I was like, I don't know what I would say. I don't know what I would think of. And then it came to me, and this isn't really, I mean, this applies to independent wrestling as a whole. But I think I apply it more toward the more Texas scene.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's just fine.
That's fine.
That can be localized. That is fine.
Yeah, I mean, it still applies to all indies. Just in general, though, and it's just stuff I've been seeing in the last like month or so. I've been seeing so repeatedly, and that's the idea that we mentioned it before. There are so many viable alternatives now more than ever, and the reason I think there are those viable alternatives, and I mean, from the fact that there are alternative, is that they're doing something different. The formula, there's no formula for wrestling. Mm-hmm. There's no, I mean, there's a somewhat of a formula.
Except for there's a ring and pins and this, and there's a story and two people's fighting in the middle of the ring. And there's a
physical formula in how to execute it.
Right.
But there's not a emotional, you know, sort of general formula into how a crowd reacts. What is, what's right and what is wrong. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why. I've just been seeing so much stuff, particularly on Facebook recently. I don't know if you get this a lot, but people sharing stuff of the stuff of Joey Ryan doing the whole King of Dong style stuff.
Yeah. It's killing the business.
Someone shared and how it's killing the business. And how someone shared a photo, I think it was from Beyond Wrestling, it's from like a while ago, of someone doing a choke slam with the force from, like, basically, you know, giving a guy a choke slam when he's halfway across the ring, basically. Mm-hmm. And how that's killing the business. Someone shared a video of a PWG show where Ricochet and Samurai Del Sol were having an exchange, and it's very like a flippy kind of exchange, and being like, well, that's not wrestling. You know, those guys should be, you know, telling a story. And it's like, one of those guys just wrestled in front of 40,000 people, and the other's currently employed by the WWE. Mm-hmm. Like, the creativity is what makes indie wrestling great. Right. It's what makes indie wrestling different than the WWE. I think in aspects is allowing more creativity, especially like in NXT and stuff like that. But still, you're saying this is what you sort of have to do. You know, to tell somebody this is wrong, this is right, I consider wrestling an art. It's not a science. It's an art.
I like that.
And art is very subjective. You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this thing will piss people off. Maybe people who are in Texas are watching this have probably pissed at me. Whatever. I just think that, you know, what works for you works for you. And I think there is an aspect of Texas where it, for a long time, has been very dated. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say Texas wrestling currently isn't what, you know, it's not what Philly is, and it's not what Los Angeles is, and it's not what, you know, the East Coast is. But it doesn't have to not be. You know what I mean? Like, I think a lot of it is because some people are very stuck in their mindsets. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if you're wrestling in front of a specific crowd that wants to see a certain style of wrestling, and it's more simplistic, that's fine. There's a certain style of people in Texas who want to see, you know, Joey Ryan do a test of strength with his genitalia. You know, there's a different, know your audience, and not everything works for every audience. You can't, you know, be at an Inspire Pro show, maybe, for example, and work a side headlock, and you know, that's the whole thing, is you're doing a simple kind of match that you would wrestle in front of, you know, a couple hundred people who, you know, aren't like diehard wrestling fans.
Mm-hmm.
It's different. And I don't know, just my resolution is just people should stop being so critical of what others are doing. I don't know. It's just honestly just been spurred by recent stuff because it's been happening so frequently. I've been noticing. Yeah. As of late. I don't know.
I think you're in the right spot there. And I guess mine is going to be a version of that. So you're saying like stop judging these other things just because you don't understand it. It feels like. My thing is to that, like, you know, being different and everything. I think people that run indie companies and the wrestlers, I think, get this a little bit too, that they need to stick out, right? And not like, well, I'm just like a mini Rock, I'm like a mini Stone Cold, I'm a mini Hulk Hogan, whatever. Is anybody trying to be a mini Hulk Hogan these days? But you know, but as far as productions, as far as shows, you know, even looking at, you know, some of these indie like online shows, TV shows, whatever. And trying to see, you know, I think Lucha Underground sticks out because it's a true alternative. It does not feel like anybody else. Wrestle Kingdom sticks out because, well, it's Japanese wrestling. It feels like different stuff, and it's now accessible to us, right? It doesn't feel like anything I would attend in America. I don't think. And I think when you're an indie in a town that's doing this, but trying to be bigger and trying to pretend to be bigger, you know, when you're trying to do certain production values, like, well, why are we doing these production values? Because I want this to get to the point, I want to feel like we're WWE. I was like, great, you'll be the second run or third run or 50th run WWE wannabe, right? And all the people will notice is that, oh, look, they're doing things like WWE. How quaint, they'll never be WWE. So what are you doing different? You know, Chikara was like, has shows where there's like 20 people in the crowd in these weird venues, but they're doing something different and interesting, and it's great, you know. AIW is doing things to kind of stick out on social media, as we've talking about, but it's been really great. And they have a different feel and a more raw feel, and not really like anything I think that's on TV right now, right?
And I think also with like companies like them, I think more you also get companies that try to just be Ring of Honor as well,
right?
To be PWG. And it comes off as fake. Like AIW, I think, does a great job, for example, because they have that sort of style of wrestling, but they also book like Bunkhouse Buck and who else? Like Vader and like just weird names. But they're now known as the company that books all these weird names. Like, and there's a selling value to that,
right?
I think that extends to promotions and also extends to some wrestlers. Like, we're living in an age where more indie wrestlers are getting looked at by WWE. The style is different in WWE to where those indie wrestlers can succeed now, as opposed to, you know, maybe 10 years ago where they would have been passed up on or looked down upon. But at the same time, the people that they are signing right now have set themselves apart and have built a following.
Right.
If I see another guy, and I'm just saying, try not to be just another guy in trunks who's like characters like, I'm badass and I'm cool and I'm good at wrestling.
But to be fair, and I've heard this, is the people that try to be too complicated.
That's true.
There's.
I just think.
I mean, just a little bit. We saw this on Breaking Ground. You have to come out and present yourself and be confident, and you have to convey what you are in the first 5 seconds you walk out that curtain. And if you think your story takes, but then I'm also this, and this, it's like, well, if you can't fit that in the first 5 seconds, and that's just crowd. I mean, that's part of the art. That's honestly part of the art. That's theater. That's part of the art form is conveying to the crowd, you know, a story and them getting into it, like you were kind of talking about before. So, sorry.
I just think that if like the extent of your persona, so to speak, is I am great at wrestling and I wear trunks and I'm great at wrestling.
Welcome.
You have to be really great at wrestling.
Welcome to the first anybody I know out of a training camp. Very few.
And maybe that's just me, but I don't know. I see guys and it's like, you're putting on pretty great matches, but like the only way that you're going to get more opportunities sort of like that is that you have to have something about yourself
Right.
that captivates people.
Right.
It doesn't have to be an over the top character, but
no, just enough of one. A mix of he's this and he does this in the ring. And how that comes off. I feel like looking just at the people that we know in our circles here. Who we just talked to tonight. Like she's kind of got an interesting air, and I love that she's leaning into the not really an Asian thing. Was kind of an interesting wrinkle to that. But even looking at somebody like an Andrew Powell, seeing him develop through the years, into what he is, which is this kind of wild guy that runs around and has the hair and used to have a goggle fetish or something like that, or even Darren De Niro. Like he just looks like kind of pretty muscly guy that smiles like a model, and he's kind of goofy otherwise. Does some pretty good stuff in the ring. Obviously got some attention from some people in Britain, so maybe you'll see him on some of that stuff you want to watch this year. And but he's trying stuff too. He's doing this Backstreet Boy thing in the one promotion we were talking about. I was bugging the promoter to see if he was bringing that over to IWC, and he's trying some stuff out. He's still in that growing phase too. So
yeah.
That.
I think also, like, we're living in an era as well where being able to captivate people is more important than anything. I think the people that are successful in WWE and Lucha Underground and New Japan aren't just the ones that are great at wrestling, they're the ones that captivate people and have that emotional connection with the audience. I think there was a period in indie wrestling where if you were putting on great matches, that's what made you popular.
Right. And
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
that's kind of weaned back, I feel, a bit.
Right. I mean, also I think the advent of social media, YouTube. Oh, that guy just entertained me on YouTube doing X. Now I want to pay attention to his matches. It's the whole package, like we're talking about. Like we're talking about before about guys like Colt Cabana becoming an entire character and persona online, and really using that as a tool. What we talked about before. You know what they should do. What people should do to practice their promos. They should get on Snapchat and cut a 10-second promo on people. Or get on Periscope and start just cutting a promo on anybody that's out there. Anything that moves. I mean, it's practice. And it's practice is going to go away in 24 hours too. So it's not. You don't have these horrible promos floating around YouTube 10 years from now when you're in WWE, right? I think that's an important part too. So I think it's some great stuff. You know what another great resolution is? Make sure you put on your schedule to weekly check out Around the Indies from the great Matt Collins over there. A visual representation and breakdown of your week in indie wrestling. Because I know there's a lot. There's barbed wire wrestling still happening around wrestling. Holy crap. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla had another show. It feels like they have them every 2 weeks at this point. Does that seem right?
About every month or so, yeah.
On Point Wrestling had a barbed wire match. That's great. There's some great pictures over here. You said a couple of things that looked like it caught your eye when it came to Matt's article this week. Do you recall what that was at this point?
I can't seem.
Other than holy crap, barbed wire.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's a market for that, for the barbed wire still. God, I wish I had it pulled up. There was. I mean, I always love Matt's article because I think it just gives a really great sort of look at everything, and it gives you sort of a nice kind of like. Obviously, I talked to Sorg about this, like the visual stuff, and yeah, it's really great. I would definitely encourage people to check it out.
Awesome. Some great stuff. Like I said, very, very multimedia. Some great stuff there. And that's why it's important as an indie that you put your stuff out there and have these opportunities and have these bite-sized bits that people can share like this and get it around. You never know. You never know when Air Jock is going to happen, or from Inspire Wrestling when that one girl went through the table, right? Or even just I saw pictures all this week of Instagrams of Delilah Doom's new outfits.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to hit. So put out there and give just every time you put out a clip or a video or let a fan do it at a show, it's an opportunity to find more fans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, podcasting and a lot of things that we do around here is the one fan at a time philosophy. Oh, I talked to a person at a thing at a booth, and now maybe they'll go listen to a show. You know, hey, one of those people is in the chat room tonight, and he writes a blog, and I hope he mentions this on his awesome blog. He's got a really good blog about the local stuff, the Tragar, out there. I've been I can't remember the blog name off the top of my head, but I share it out whenever I see something pop up there on our Mayhem Show Twitter account. I mean, that's the way it is for all that kind of stuff. Eamon, we gotta get out of here. It's been an awesome first night in 2016 of Podcast Day. You guys can join us. We're live.sorgatronmedia.com, live.wrestlingmayhemshow.com, about 11 p.m. Eastern Time every Tuesday. Eamon, he's at Eamon to please.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
At Inspire Perez on Twitter as well.
Yes. And and our guest, her Twitter is _, how do you say her name again?
Hyaneyoung.
Hyaneyoung.
It's spelled, for those looking to get it spelled, that's Hyane, young, as in young and old.
Or get that spelling from this listing on the YouTube or at WrestlingMayhemShow.com. We'll have that up there as well. So thank you so much for joining us. And again, check out everything at WrestlingMayhemShow.com. Subscribe to this and all the other shows, and drop us a line. Good times at WrestlingMayhemShow.com or 412-206-WMS0. I'm at Sorgatron on the Twitters. Thank you so much, and please support indie wrestling through all of 2016.
For the taste of the floor. Sick, you know how I act now. If you got a problem, come and see if I'm a back down. Act wild, steady sipping Jack now.
Show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.